What does congruence mean? Congruence means you are living in alignments with what you know is the best of you. Congruence is living in alignment with what you know is the best of you. Write it down. Congruence equals living in alignment with what you know is the best of you, comma, consistently. Okay. Congruence, living in alignment, meaning it's consistently living into your best self, consistently coming from your best place, consistently showing up as the person you know you are. It means speaking your truth. It means living your values. It means being a person of integrity. That's what congruence means. Living in alignment with the best of who you are, living in alignment with your values, being someone who represents what you really believe. And this one, I mean, imagine if you feel like you're a kind-hearted person, but you're consistently a jerk to your neighbor, your brain knows that. And your brain logs it into a perception of self. And that's the problem. Write this down. The brain keeps score. That's the challenge with congruence. Your brain's keeping score. You say you're going to be a healthy person this year, and you knock down a couple bottles of wine, hopefully not in the same sitting. You overdid, you took 4 weeks off of working out just because. You don't follow, you're not congruent with what you said. You said you were going to do this thing, you didn't. And that incongruence creates a greater log of reasons to not be confident. Because guess what? When you are not congruent, your brain logs that. And what it says in that log entry, when you're incongruent, your brain makes an entry in your confidence bank account, a withdrawal. And what it says, not living your word, not living your truth, not doing what you said you would do. And too many of those negative withdrawals sucks away your confidence. And so some people are bankrupt in confidence because they're not consistent in congruence. You follow? You got to go, oh, okay. But here's what you need. To be congruent, what do you need? Clarity. You say, okay, these are my values. These are my beliefs. This is what I think is important as a human being, as a parent, as a caregiver, as a leader. Okay, and then congruence is living up to that. Congruence is measuring this. Congruence measures whether or not you're doing what you said you're going to do. And that's important. So here's the simplest fix. If you've been pulling too many withdrawals out of that bank account, it's time to put some back in. And so today might be the day you go, where have I been incongruent? Where do I say something and I don't do it? Where have I treated people in a way that's not who I really am? Where am I doing things because I feel obligated to do them for others, but that's not really me? Where have you been faking it? Where have you been showing up as someone that's not authentic to you? I'll share a funny story. I'd like to keep it hopefully entertaining enough for you guys as we ask some tough questions. Personal development, the best of personal development is tough questions, but some of it's too, just those epiphanies we get along the way. And I remember I was talking with a person about social media, and they'd seen what we had achieved early days of Facebook. I was the first person in personal development to hit 1 million people on Facebook, like a personal development teacher, and so we had 1 million, then it was 2, then it was 3, then it was 4. And it was just like, it was bananas. It was totally crazy. It was my quotes and my writing that was getting shared so much. And someone said one time, well, all these other influencers, they're showing their day more than you do, and they're, you live on the beach. We've never seen a picture with you on your beach, or we've never seen, you do this and we don't see that, and we don't see that, and we don't see that. And I go, I don't feel like I have to show every part of my life. I don't need to take my shirt off for everybody just because other people take their shirt off. I don't, that's not congruent with how I feel like I show up in the world. I don't have to show my butt. I just don't feel like it's a thing. That's just not going to be me. No judgment. I just know that that's not me. There's a lot of things also, I wish I was like this, or I wish I could do that. But when I really think down, I go, you know what? That's not for me. And I have clarity, that's not for me. Think about every major pain you've had in your life. You went in the wrong direction or you went with the wrong person, or you didn't listen to that whisper that said, nah, that's not us. And so you faked it till you made it, but you made it and you're still faking it. And so what ends up happening is we got to know when we're out of congruence. Where are you out of congruence? And can you do the simple acts? Sometimes when you're out of congruence, first you just apologize to yourself. You say, you know what? Gosh, Brendon, I haven't been honest with myself. Let's make a change. Maybe you've been incongruent with someone who you love and just go, hey, you know what? I'm sorry about my behavior lately. That's not the energy I want to bring to my marriage. Maybe you've been incongruent with some friends. You said you'd be there and they're going through a hard time and you haven't even called them. You call them up and say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I want to let you know, I'd like to think of myself as a better friend than that. So I'm going to call you every Monday, 5 p.m. I'm going to bother you, make sure you're okay. I think the fastest path back into congruence is an apology to yourself, an apology to other persons. Because apologies are hard. Apologies are integrity. It takes a lot of guts to say you are wrong. It takes a lot of guts to acknowledge you could do better. And I think it's a beautiful place. I think most people are scared of apologies. I think they open a big gate. They open the gate to communication. I think apologies open a gate to your spirit. I think an apology can go, I'm better. I'm better. And so where could you be more authentically you? And where could you be more authentically you more consistently? More consistently. This is a critical one. Again, your brain is keeping the bank account. It's logging your behavior. This one's fundamental. But here's the good news too. You get to decide today what to be congruent with. You get to decide who you are, and you get to decide to show up and live into that. You get to, like many of you go to know my story, when I was a depressed young man and suicidal. At some point, I knew that wasn't me. I wanted to live my life. And so I had to go, okay, I need to make sure each day I give reverence to my Creator that I'm still here. I need to make sure each day I do something that has a passion. I do eat something today. I bring some joy. Each day I sense aliveness in my life. I'm going to live into that congruence because I'm not there yet, but that's who I really feel like. So in other words, you can grow into your aspirational self. You can learn to be more congruent with a better version of yourself than you are today. That's where personal growth comes from. A better vision of yourself, and you live into that each day. You congruently show up, consistently show up for that new image of yourself. That's what's beautiful about life. You get to recast. A mature adult gets to recast a vision of themselves, right? Unconscious animals don't get to do that. We as a human species have this weird, bizarre ability to set a different vision for ourselves. An alligator's always going to think of itself as an alligator. It's just an alligator. Humans can imagine a different self. How incredible is that? So use that power. Use that power. New vision for yourself. Show up for it each day. New vision for yourself. Show up for it each day. New vision, show up. The more you do that, the more the brain logs, puts that cash money into that confidence bank account, says, she's walking the talk, people, get out the way. Here she comes. She's in charge. She's back. There she is. Got it. It's important, y'all.
If you've heard me talk about fears before, I usually say that there's, sort of 3 types of fear. And those types of fear are usually oriented towards like loss. Like I'm scared I'm gonna lose, my identity, or I'm scared I'm gonna lose my job, or I'm gonna lose money, or I'm gonna lose something. I also talk about the way that we think about fear. We're also scared of the hardship pains. It's like, oh, it's gonna be difficult or hard, or I won't know how to do it, or I'll look stupid, or the outcome pains. And the outcome pains are, well, if I do all that and it doesn't turn out well then, what's that say about me? Or, gosh, why would I have wasted all that time? So usually when I think about fear, I kind of think about it in, I guess, sort of 3 time periods. Like before I do the thing, I'm scared if I do that thing, I'm gonna lose what I currently have. And then I think about, well, in the process of it, I'm scared I'm gonna have some pain, it's gonna be hardship, and I'm scared after I do it, it won't turn out well. And I think that's where our minds usually are when we are consciously contemplating fear, right? If we sit down and we think about, okay, I'm gonna do this thing, and we're very conscious or aware, we sense that, oh, maybe I'll lose this, maybe that'll be hard, maybe it won't turn out well, but that's really the rationalized fears. I think there are also very impulsive fears that we have that often maybe underlie beneath the surface. The first one, which is the fear of rejection. As a social species, acceptance, validation, belonging is so built into our DNA. Like it's just it's like so important to us that doing anything that would risk us looking like a fool, that would make your family make fun of you, that would make somebody stop loving you or caring for you as much, or doing something where you would truly feel like you are now ostracized by people that you care about or care for, it's terrifying for people. It's funny though, when I sit down with a 40-year-old and we're talking about their life and they're secure at home and they're secure at work and things are going good, so life is good, but they're trying to reach that next level. Sometimes we have to really ask, am I fearing rejection? Is that why I'm not at the next level? Please don't tell me that fear is not an issue in your life, and please don't tell me rejection's not. Because you were scared doing that thing, and this might not have been fully conscious. You were scared doing that fully thing, jumping into that goal, that dream. Somebody might say something to you. They might hate on you on the internet. Your neighbors might look at you funny, if they don't already. You might have had somebody around kind of like you just knew their negativity would increase the more risk that you took, even though you knew those risks were really the next right actions of integrity for you, right? That's what I'm always telling people. It's like, when you're stuck and you don't know what to do, I always say, just take the next right action of integrity for you, whatever that is. Speak up for yourself, take that step, move towards that dream, whatever you got to do, take that next right action of integrity. Well, for a lot of people, that's scary when the spouse isn't going to be supportive, when the boss is going to say no, when the business is secure, but now you're going to try something new that might risk your ROI or your cash flow. It's scary. It's scary. And what we all want so much is to be loved and validated and accepted and belong. And most people don't look at this one. So let's flip it on its head a little bit. Let's flip it on its head. Because we know it's a powerful driver for people, even if they're not fully aware of how much they really are doing. When people read my book, The Motivation Manifesto, they're always like, man, I didn't realize how much I was doing to please other people. Because those who, you might say, well, rejection's not an issue. And I go, well, are you a pleaser? Are you a people pleaser? Are you someone who makes a lot of compromises in your life to help other people? because you just feel like you need to do that? And they go, yeah. I said, do you ever please other people to the detriment of yourself? They go, yeah. I go, well, then you have rejection issues. If you can't say no, you have rejection issues. If you can't take risks, you have rejection issues. If you're trying to please everybody all the time at the cost of your own health, wealth, joy, confidence in life, you have rejection issues. And so what to do? A couple simple recommendations. Number one, make sure you read at some point of your life the Motivation Manifesto. It will put fire in you to stop being a people pleaser, and it will put you back onto marching the right path for yourself. And it will do it with some language that will absolutely put some fire under your belly. Second, though, let's flip the script a little bit here. If we know that human belonging, acceptance, and love is so important to us, but right now we are focused on a rejection or a concern what they might think if I say yes or no or don't do my thing, then maybe we can flip it and say, oh, well, what would I have to do to gain the next level of love, connection, belonging, or validation in this group of people who I want to serve, who I want to care for, who I want to contribute to? Okay, second big point up here. Oh my gosh, this is a big one. If you didn't take that big risk this year, I bet this one was rubbing on your brains. And you're like, why didn't I do that thing? It's because we fear ruin. Ruin. The fear of complete and utter irreversibility of a negative consequence. That's what it is. It's that fear of just complete irreversibility of a negative consequence. And here's the thing. If you've ever found yourself like, I'm not going to do that because that could ruin us, you're in a ruin mindset versus a learning mindset. I tell people all the time who say, well, Brendon, you don't understand, I'm not scared of ruin, I'm just scared of being disappointed. And I said, no, you're just not into learning yet. You're not scared of disappointment. You're just not into learning yet. Because when you are into learning, now disappointment and ruin aren't even on the table anymore. Because everything is a test. Everything is a data point. Everything is something to learn from. And everything is a jumping off point, not a cliff. And I know a lot of people in the industry of entrepreneurialism or small business owners or people who want to be in that. And they say, well, Brendon, I'm scared to start my own business because, what do they say? I'll go broke. I'll face financial ruin. And I'm always like, you know what? No one ever hits financial ruin. They really don't. There is no financial can't come back from place because every person can make a new dollar, right? And that new dollar that's one peg up and another new dollar, another new dollar. And I speak to this not flippantly to you. I went bankrupt in my life, really. I mean, full on bankruptcy in the early part of my life. When I first started my first business and I was trying to do teaching and training and online training and workshops, I didn't know what I was doing. Totally went bankrupt. And I never thought, this is forever. Oh my God. I was like, you know what? This sucks. Not what I want. So what's the next right action of integrity? Why is it important that I still show up and deliver with excellence? What will I do today? If there is tomorrow, there is no ruin. If there is tomorrow, there is no ruin. So what do? As soon as you start feeling yourself catastrophizing, remember to ask yourself better questions and say, okay, not what I wanted, so what should I do today? Not what I wanted, what am I going to do tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening to start moving it forward, to making that next dollar or that next right action of integrity, to make that next call, that next email. There's always a next, right? Always a next. It's one of the great 4-letter words of all time. Next, right? So ruin shouldn't be stopping you. Fear of ruin you just have to know where that is, because what you're doing is you're catastrophizing. And this is really important. If you don't feel like you made big leaps this year, you were scared. You were like, I'm going to jump off this cliff and take this action, and I'm going to fall to my death, ruin, death, destruction. Instead of saying, I'm going to jump off this cliff and I'm going to fly, baby. I don't know how, and I might fall for a little bit, but I'm going to flap those wings, and at some point I'm going to catch that wind, and here we go. Your expectancy was in the gutter versus in the air. You were looking down versus looking up. You were feeling down versus animating yourself so you felt better and that you moved further. So my friends, be wary of the ruinous thoughts, those global, catastrophizing, dead, negative, forever things that you have. As soon as you hear it, you got to flip it. As soon as you hear it, you got to flip it. Third big idea in overcoming our fears is that fear of regret. Fear of regret is such a sort of, I would say, it's like a stake in the ground that you're tied to. You know, when you just, you know you want to go beyond a boundary, but this fear of regret stops you. Because you don't want to regret taking an action, because if you took an action and you were rejected and you were ruinous, and then you felt like, I knew I shouldn't have done that, well, how doubly, doesn't this make everything else worse? Right? If you fear these things and they happen, now you regret the action, is 10 times worse. But that's what we keep doing. We 10 times our fears by going, well, if I do it, I'll regret it. And so we got to, just like other things, we have to flip this a little bit, and we have to go, oh, okay, well, what if I do positive things so that I don't have negative regrets? Versus saying, well, I don't want to do that because I would experience negative regret. Does that make sense? So what positive things can you do so you don't have regret? Versus fearing something and stopping so you don't have regret. Meaning, most people use regret the wrong way. They use regret as a reason to not do something. I don't want to do that because I'll regret it. Versus, I'm going to do those things so I don't have regret. Right? Many of you guys know my story from my car accident as a 19-year-old kid. Part of the reason I lived so courageously and boldly and I put myself out there so much all the time is because I don't want to get to the end of my life and say, you know what, I served half-assed because I was scared. I don't want to get to the end of my life and regret going through so many days not present, going through so many days just going through the motions, going through so many days not engaged with my passions, my enthusiasms, my loves, my people. Like, I don't want to be that guy who's rocking on the rocket chair saying, I wish I woulda, shoulda, coulda at the end of my life. So I take positive daily actions to avoid that type of experience. Does it make sense? And then I would also say, same thing with regret and ruin, they're really connected so closely in that we think, well, I don't want to get to the end of my life, wish I woulda, shoulda, coulda, and act like there's still not a tomorrow. The ideal of hope for a better tomorrow is one of the great deconstructors of fear. Because most of our fear is tied to, there's a block there. Like, fear introduces like this black wall in front of us. And we forget on the other side, there's all this open field of freedom. And we just keep thinking, our fear like narrows our view so tightly that we forget that there's tomorrow. So people, their regrets are held so close. Like, I don't want to do that because I'll regret that and it'll be irrecoverable. And I'm just like, well, when you have a learning mindset, there's not much regret. Like, just like I don't have a lot of disappointment, I also don't have a lot of regret. Because I was like, oh, I did that, didn't work out, darn it. Okay, shouldn't have done that. Learn, adjust behavior, right? A lot of people who struggle with concerns, and here's a tell. If you're a person who if regret is driving you, if this year you also felt a lot of guilt, guilt is a great tell that you have a psychological propensity for the fear of regret. They're like, twins. It's just like people who have lots of fear of regret also tend to have high psychological concern for guilt. Like they're guilty. They feel guilty all the time. I feel guilty, I feel guilty, I feel guilty, I feel guilty. And so guess what? I don't want to do anything else because I'll regret it. Because I already feel bad about myself. So why take an action? I feel so bad about myself, why take an action? And so their regret has become something that has stopped them. Their guilt is something that adds on to that. And now they're immobilized because of high fear of regret and psychological guiltiness. And so what I tell people, I say, look, if you got a lot of guilt, there's the simplest ways out, right? The simplest ways out of guilt. I mean, the path out of guilt starts at the path of forgiveness. For yourself, for other people. And I also tell people this, we think of forgiveness often as forgiveness of just ourselves, which you should do. I mean, you gotta let it go. You can't advance with all the baggage of self-hate. You gotta let that stuff go. And so what I tell people is, as much as we fear that, like, I'm going to regret and I have a lot of guilt and they don't let that go and they think forgiveness is just about themselves and others, I also go, you know what? Forgive yesterday. You weren't as wise or intentional or thoughtful as you could be today. And remember, that's the ideal of hope. I go, oh, I don't have to regret yesterday. I don't have to be guilty about yesterday, because you know what? I'm better today. I learned from that. I'm telling you, the learning mindset is the great release of fear. Because as soon as you approach it, it's like, I'm going to learn through it and get better. Now the fear doesn't stop you anymore. Because you don't say, well, I'm going to get stuck here, or this will happen forever. The forever goes away when you finally step into the realization that there is hope, there is a tomorrow. Because you know what I think one side of regret would be? To have lived your whole life with a bleak outlook. Because you'll get to the end and you go, I didn't appreciate it. I didn't appreciate all those days I had. I didn't appreciate all the second chances I had every time I woke up a new Monday morning. I didn't appreciate it. I missed the whole ride. You know what? I stood in line for the ride of life the whole time. I never got on the ride. I was just a waiter. I was just a watcher. I never really engaged. That's real regret. And I can share with that because I've been there in hospices with people in the last weeks, hours, minutes of their life. And if there is regret, it's usually a lack of full engagement with life. I didn't really show up. I didn't appreciate what I had. So if you got a lot of regret, you got to learn to forgive the guilt, forgive the bad days, and start appreciating today again. Because you know what? When you fall in love with the moment, when you fall in love with this opportunity you have, when you really appreciate the now, then there's not a lot of room for fear in that. Right? In that deep feeling of appreciation, it's hard for fear to edge itself in. So let go of the regret concerns, my friend. There's a tomorrow, and it's going to be amazing. Last piece, number 4. This is what we really fear. Responsibility. We fear that we are actually very responsible for our lives. It's like that great Marianne Williamson quote you've ever heard, right? The thing we fear so much, she was basically saying, I don't remember the exact quote, but she was basically, that, we're not so much afraid that we're inadequate. We're actually fearful of our full power. Because what would that really bring out in us? What would that say if we were fully responsible for the outcomes in our life? What would it say if we had more power than we were actualizing in life? That's scary. People are scared of responsibility. And in very tactical ways. Like if I said to you, hey, I'm going to make you responsible for, let's say you own a small business. And I say, I'm going to make you responsible for 50 more employees and all of their mortgages. A lot of people go, oh my God, right? Total terror to be responsible for other people's lives, right? Or other people's mortgages or other people's whatevers. And so responsibility is scary to people, right? I mean, look at any great personal development teacher. At the base of everything they teach is personal responsibility, or what used to be called self-reliance. That sense of personal power that says, I am in command of my life. Doesn't mean you're in command of everything that happens to you in life, but you are in command of your responses. And what we are scared of is that we won't show up as our best self to deal with those demands. Right? We're scared of taking full responsibility for everything, because what would that say about our lives? But I take full responsibility for everything in my life. It doesn't mean I believe I caused everything. Does that make sense? So law of attraction, people calm down. 1 second. Take a breather. I'm not saying you attracted cancer, babe. I'm not saying you attracted that mean person. I'm not saying you attracted the bankruptcy. Right? A lot of that bad teaching early on in the days of the new law of attraction, was just misguided, because there's lots of things that happen to us that are cosmic, chaotic, weird things that we can't explain or will never be able to understand. It's things that we didn't attract, we didn't want to happen. They happen, and it wasn't because you had bad character or you were a negative person or you'd done something bad. Look, bad things happen to good people. If you haven't read it, it's a great book, How Good People Deal with Bad Things. But I would also share with you that ultimately we are responsible for our responses. We are responsible for the people who we become. Maybe you didn't ask for that cancer. You are responsible for how you are going to deal with that. And for those who go, well, that's too flippant to say, I'm like, I just remind you, go back and read some Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. He said it best. He said, the last of the human freedoms is the ability to choose one's own attitude. They can take away everything else, but they can't take away how you respond in mind. And when you know that, that gives you great power and responsibility in life. And so when you feel like a victim, this is one of your great fears. You might not call it that. You might not recognize it. And I just go, oh, you're scared of responsibility. I say this to people all the time who say, Brendon, I have a big dream. I go, have you told your family, your friends, the people around you what your big dream is? Well, no. I said, well, you're dealing with this, and you're dealing with this. You're scared that by putting it out there, you won't be able to handle the pressure. You won't be able to handle the demands. That's fear of responsibility. I'm fearful that I won't be able to be able to deal with the stuff. And I'm just like, there's a tomorrow. You can learn. Like, I have extreme personal power because I have hope. I have extreme personal power because I have optimism for tomorrow. I have extreme personal power because I look at the areas of my life on a weekly basis and I say, where have I been stuck? Where am I fearful? What can I do this next week as the next right action of integrity? Everything we've talked about, because here, you flip all of these. Watch what happens in your life, right? You flip rejection to doing the things that will bring greater connection in your life. Watch the quality of your life go up. You stop worrying about what will be ruined, and you start remembering that there's always a tomorrow, and you have hope and optimism, and you just always ask, okay, there's not ruin, what's my next right action of integrity? And you keep moving forward even through the disasters of life. Watch the courage that enters your heart there. Watch the confidence that comes in when you keep moving through the storm. Guess what happens? When regret is free, you let that go. You're gone. You're just not worried about the regret of, if I do this, maybe things will turn out bad. And you said, okay, what would I need to do so I don't experience regret at the end of my life? What positive actions could I take to live a life of my own so I don't have regret? So I'm proud of my life, because pride on the other side of regret feels good. Then responsibility. What would it, instead of saying, well, what if I can't handle it? Or what if I'm not responsible? You said, you know what? I'm totally responsible for this. I am able to shape this, guide this, change this, make it better. Now you're really stepping in your personal power. And when you move through these things on just a very tactical weekly basis, you're aware of these fears and you start flipping them. You start flipping them. You start flipping them. You start flipping them. You get in this rhythm, and all of a sudden you say, wow, I feel really courageous in my life. And that's when you start making your greatest contributions. Hey everybody, it's Brendon Burchard, and today I'm talking about the 4 dumb things we say that prevents our own personal growth and professional excellence.
Look, we all have internal thoughts that sometimes slow us down. I'm sure you know that sometimes you have negative thinking, sometimes you say things to yourself that justifies, bad behavior or laziness or distraction. We all do, so there's no judgment to this, except that, yes, it's kind of dumb. We say certain things that we just culturally get used to saying that we never really explore, and those things hurt our personal development. And so what I want to do is dig down into these 4 things we say, because they're dumb, and I know once you hear a little logic behind them, you'll say, it's not worth saying that to myself anymore because it's not a true story, and it's only holding you back, okay? So first and foremost, before we go, I want you to think about a big dream of yours, something that you really care about, something you really want to make happen, or a goal that you also have had for a while and you've been trying to do it, but it's just not working out well. Maybe you're telling yourself one of these 4 dumb things, okay? So to share the first one with you, I'm gonna move this aside, and here it is. I hear this one all the time. Brendon, I've tried everything. Whenever I hear that, I know I'm talking with a crazy person. I'm just teasing. Here's what I know. People often, when they hear a new idea, or you say, hey, have you thought about chasing that dream or pursuing your goal? They say, yeah, I've tried everything. And because they tried 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 things, they say, didn't work for me. That's not right for me. That's not possible for me. And those aren't true stories. As a high-performance coach, often when I sit down with people, I talk about their dreams, they often say this to me, well, Brendon, I've already tried everything. And so I say to them, oh, great, then show me the list. And they go, what do you mean? I say, show me the list. They say, what do you mean? I say, well, if you tried everything, then of course you would have had to keep a detailed list of what you tried, when you tried it, what results you got, what worked and what didn't work. If you didn't have a list like that, you couldn't ensure things that were like mutually exclusive. And if you couldn't tell things that were mutually exclusive, then you wouldn't know you tried everything. So, have you ever told yourself that? I've already tried everything, didn't work. Think about how many times in your life you give up too soon. You're at like that 10-yard line, the touchdown's right there, but you're like, well, I've tried everything, I guess it's not working, and you back off. We know from the psychology of success, it's those who persevere longer than others and maintain more resiliency in the face of challenge that succeed more. So if you ever hear yourself saying, I tried everything, no, that's a big, bad story you're telling yourself, and say, no, I haven't tried everything. Let me get some advice. Let me ask some more people. Let me start keeping a trail of what I have tried so I can say, already did that. But I did this, but I didn't do it in that way. There's a lot of new things you can keep trying to keep getting ahead. Don't give up on your goals and your dreams just because you tried 4 or 5 things. It's very true that often you're closer than you think, my friend. The second big thing, walk with me, is a big one, a huge one. And this one, people say to me all the time, sure, that works for him or that works for her, but that wouldn't work for me. Have you ever said that? Right? You have this big goal or your dream. You see your mentor, you see your dream, they're doing it, but you're like, oh, that wouldn't work for me because that's not my style, or I'm not like that, or she has this and he has that. And we false compare ourselves to others, and we think they're so special. We still, in this culture today, we still pretend that there are some people who just have it, and other people don't have it, right? We think, oh, well, he's just naturally good at that. She's just born to be that. But in everything that we study, those who achieve high performance in their life, they trained, they conditioned, they practiced. They sucked at first, but they were okay with that. They were cool with not being good. And then they just kept getting better and better and better and better and better. And now you watch them today and you're like, oh, wow, I could never be like that. But the reality is you could. You just got to put in the miles. I share that with you just knowing how I started my career. I used to say that too. I look at these people on television or these big YouTubers. I'd see these people on big stages motivating people. And I thought, well, I'm not like that because I'm more of an introverted person in general when I started this career. And I've had to learn to be more and more extroverted to be good at all of this. But I'd say, well, I'm not like that. And the reality was I wasn't like that. But I had a mission and I had a dream.
And you should never make your mission or your dream bow down to your current limited strengths. Instead, you should say, if that's what I want, how could I rise up into that? How could I train? What knowledge, skill, ability do I need to learn and start learning right now so that I can have that dream, my friend, because you deserve it. So stop telling yourself you can't have it. I get all the time, well, sure, that works for Brendon on video. I'm like, what? Works for Brendon on video? Like, I came out of the womb like, hi guys, I'm Brendon Burchard. Like, no, this took me forever. I'm doing this extemporaneous in our new office. I don't know how it's going to go either. I just trust in that process. And you know, for me, my first video that I ever did was so horrible. Okay, my first year of videos, they were terrible, they were awful, they were uncomfortable. Some of you still don't even like what I'm doing now. That's fine. It's okay. I just know that I'm always trying to get better and better and better and grow into the person who I know deserves that dream, who earns that dream. No one you're looking to, none of your heroes just came out of the womb and by natural birthright or innate talent got there. They usually outworked their peers. They usually showed up more often. They usually were more strategic in getting a good peer group around them to support them, to champion them on, to push them. Notice I didn't say they had a better peer group. They knew that was important, so they developed it. Because we often say, well, yeah, that strategy works for him because, you know, he's got a big community. Or that strategy works for her because, you know, she's charismatic. No. If there's a strategy, you can deploy it. You can work the same thing. Would you get the same results as someone who has 10 more years of experience as you? Probably not. They put on some more miles. But look, no matter how small you start something that matters. It's the great Zig Ziglar who taught us, right? You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to become great. Never look at people and say, well, sure, she can, I can't, because that's defeatist, it is wrong, and it is holding you back, my friend. Let's go on. That's number, what, 1 and 2, and here we go. I think this one is a huge one, and it kills people's lives all the time. The third big dumb thing people say is, you just don't understand. And then they quit. Just like that. When they say, I've tried everything, they quit. Well, she can do it, sure, they quit. And then they say, well, they don't understand me, you don't understand me, and then they quit. Here's the thing. If you think people can't understand your journey, then your ego has gotten the best of you. And I do say that with all due respect, but you know, there's 7 billion people alive on the planet right now. Somebody not only has gone through what you're going through, somebody is going through what you are going through. To have any imagination that people can't understand you is a false story. The ego says that I'm so special. And either I'm so special because I'm so great, or I'm so special because I'm so diminished and so hurt. And these stories are stories we tell ourselves, and it ends up dividing us from people. It builds a wall to protect ourselves because we don't want to be vulnerable. Or we're bitter because we have tried to communicate to people, but maybe our communication style wasn't so good. And that was the case for me. In college, many of you know, I was depressed and suicidal after the breakup of the first woman I ever loved. And I thought, lots of people, I was like, they can't understand me. They've never had their heart broken like this, not like this. And I told myself this story. And I kept saying, well, they don't understand. So I wouldn't tell my friends because I thought, well, they haven't been through a breakup like this. So I didn't tell them. Everybody can understand a broken heart. I've had to sit down with parents who lost their children to cancer and say to them, I understand this is difficult. And they'd say, well, you don't understand, Brendon. You don't have a child who's been lost to cancer. But we don't have to go through the exact same things to have human empathy and caring. See, by you not telling people what you really feel, what happens is they're not able to ask the questions to see what support you need. You're right, maybe they can't help you, but they can understand and find someone who could help you. The more that you hold back, the more that you're going to be in trouble. When it comes to personal growth, in silence, that's where suffering is. As soon as you say they don't understand, that's when you stop communicating. That's when you stop trying. That's when you wave everybody away. Because you know what people say, when you say you don't understand, you know what you're less likely to do? Raise your hand and ask for help. Because you go, well, they don't understand. So now You're just carte blanche. No one can understand. I'm not going to try anymore. Screw them. They won't listen anyway. And you go in your little silo, and all of a sudden you're not living life fully connected with other people who are the ones who could help you in the first place. Sometimes in our own belief that we're so special or so hurt or even so good or so skilled, and we think, well, they don't understand us. Whether you say that as a CEO, my team doesn't understand me. Or you say it as a spouse, well, my spouse doesn't understand me. Or you say it to your family, my family doesn't understand me. That's just ego. Everybody can understand you. Now you need to develop better communication style to help them understand. That's what I had to do. After I realized that maybe people could understand my depression, my heartache, I realized, you know what? Maybe I need to learn how to communicate in a different way so they could understand how what was going on in my life was really affecting me, and so I could communicate in a better way what I needed for some help. And that's all. Sometimes we just have to learn to communicate more what we're going through with people, to be more explicit, not drop hints, but just say, this is what I'm going through, and this is what I need help on. And you know what? If you tell people that consistently, often enough, with an open mindset, you'll find you get more help in the world. So here we are, 3 things so far. I've tried everything, Brendon. Sure, that works for them, Brendon, but not for me, and you don't understand, Brendon. These things hurt your personal growth. And then there is one more big one. And this one, I hate it, all right? This is the one. I don't have many pet peeves in my entire life. I've been coaching professionally for 10 years now, and I've been deeply immersed in the research in psychology, personal development, neuroscience, and behavioral economics, and everything I can get my hand on to understand the human condition. This one, I'm not gonna lie, I can't understand it. I hate it. When people say this to me, and they say this all the time on my Facebook posts, on my YouTube thing, I have to go, calm down, because it's so obnoxious, and I see it steal so many people's lives. Here's what they say though. Brendon, sure, easier said than done. Perhaps the dumbest reason ever not to try something, right? That's what people say. Easier said than done, sure. So I'll say something like, hey, you know what? Be more kind to your loved ones. And someone will post, easier said than done. I'm like, so you're not gonna try, right? Hey, you know what? Try to develop a morning routine where you take, 5 minutes for yourself. Easier said than done, I have children. I'll say, hey, you know what? Try to set goals that are a little harder. Easier said than done. People can be disappointed. Easier said than done is a defeatist statement, and it's also kind of dumb. And here's why I say it's dumb. Think about this, easier said than done. What isn't easier said than done, right? Everything is easier said than done. Gee, honey, I'm gonna go get that ice cream in the fridge. Easier said than done. That'd be accurate, right? I'm gonna go pick up that paperclip. Easier said than done. Everything is easier said than done. So it's a stupid universal thing that we say, but we often stop after it. And that's what I don't want you to do. So with all these things in mind, I know I'm playing fun a little bit that, these things are dumb. But here's what I'd like to share with you. If you're struggling and you're trying to get ahead, examine them. Do you ever find yourself saying, I've tried everything, that works for her, you don't understand, or easier said than done? Because what would happen in your life if you just flipped it around a little bit? What would happen instead of saying, I've tried everything, you said, what else could I try that would help me feel fully engaged and more likely to progress? That's all. What else could I try that would help me be fully engaged and progress? What else? And start keeping that list. What if instead of saying, sure, she can do that, works for her, but wouldn't work for me, what if instead you said, you know what, I see that working for somebody else. Let me try that and practice and get better and better and better and better. What if instead of saying, you don't understand, what if you said, hey, I'm struggling right now. I'm wondering if I could share with something. I'd love to see if you could understand or could give me some advice right now. And you entered the situation with humility. And what if instead of saying, that's easier said than done, you said, let me try that because I bet that might be effective. Look, we can all be pessimists in life. I mean, it's easy to be that today. There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of just disturbing information out online. We see it every day. It's why I spend so much time, and my team spends so much time delivering to you guys great personal development as much as we can. And I appreciate all of your support of my books, my online courses, our 5 million people here on Facebook, our unbelievable community on YouTube, our blog readers, everybody who sees us out at the seminars, or maybe you'll see me out on tour one day. This year I'll be out on the road quite a bit. But we do all of that exactly to counter this negative thinking. So I'd love for you to just take a few moments, maybe tonight, and just ask yourself, are there some things I've been telling myself in my head that have been holding me back? And what if I flipped them? You know, often we'll say to ourselves, what if this negative thing happens? What if we asked, what if this positive thing happens? I know that sounds so silly, and you might be saying, well, Brendon, he's just teaching positive thinking, but I would be honored if that's what you thought I was doing. I don't know, how do you feel about it right now? I think the world needs a little bit of positive thinking. I think people need a little bit of that belief in themselves. I think they need to believe that they can keep at it, keep going. I think right now we all need a reminder sometimes, you know what? You're stronger than you think, and the future holds good things for you. I appreciate you being here. I look forward to seeing you out on the road. Until then, go every single day of your life. Remember that you can think more positively. Remember that the world is an abundant place. Remember that other people need you to rise and lead right about now. If you can remember those things, you can live the charged life. Reveal uncertainty. This one is the opposite dynamic of how I used to think of confidence, right? We think of confident people as people who are just like, bum, you know, it's like Wonder Woman, right, is confident. We think of Superman is confident, who just knows everything. Really what it turns out to be, high performers are listen to this, high performers are a lot less Superman and a lot more Clark Kent. That's what it turned to be. In all the research, with millions of data points, in all of my conversations, high performers were much more likely to reveal things like, I don't know. Things like, I'm unsure. Things like, how do you think this should go? Things like, could you kind of help me with this? Like, high performers literally explicitly share that they don't know how it's going, they don't know how it's supposed to go, that they need some help, that they need some mentorship, that they need some guidance. That's confidence. Confidence is not holding back the deck of cards of your weaknesses. Confidence is a comfort with vulnerability. And when people say vulnerability, they often don't know what they mean. When we're talking about vulnerability, specifically related to confidence and high performance, like measurable outcomes, the thing that we can measure and see is that high performers in group meetings, in team meetings, in social situations, more often share their insecurity. They more often say, I don't know how this is supposed to go. Or, you know, they'll be the person, you know, at that fruit punch bowl who says, you know, I don't really know anybody here. I don't really know how to start to meet some of these people. Could you introduce me to somebody? And that's how they handle the social networking, where they're awkward. They instead of just sitting back at the punch bowl, drowning their sorrows and feeling bad about themselves, they engage the person next to them and say, hey, you know what? I feel kind of awkward here. I don't know a lot of people. Could you introduce me? That's how high performers are handling these little situations in life. They're not the most confident person in the meeting who goes, I know everything here. They're the most confident going, you know what? I don't know this. Here's my question. What do you guys think? And that is how you lead confidently. You reveal that you don't know everything. Saying I don't know is power, not weakness. But you've been trying to do too many things on your own. And that's one reason you don't have the confidence you deserve at this stage of your life. Because see, I didn't want to start with my definition of confidence for you, because I want you to be thinking about it, but I'd like to share it now that we've talked about defining and measuring it. The way I look at confidence is I think the confidence that matters the most is the confidence in one's belief in our ability to figure things out. That's what I believe confidence to be. Do I believe in my ability to figure things out? Not, do I know things? Because it's not always true. There's a lot of things I don't know. But do I believe in my ability to figure things out? Now there I'm confident. Not because I'm smart, because I'm good at asking. I'm good at saying, you know what? I don't know how to do this. What do you guys think? And I hope this is settling in for you, because sometimes your confidence is so low because you think your confidence is correlated with what you know versus what you're willing and able to go figure out by revealing that you don't know. Got it? Next big practice for you that will really help is small changes plus integration. This one comes from my wife. If you didn't know, my wife opened 2 exercise studios throughout her career, very, very successful at it, ultimately sold them. And today, literally this morning in the car, I said, okay, I'm gonna teach this thing on confidence. Like, what would you teach, honey? She's led lots of big teams and had an extraordinary quality of life. And I said, okay, well, tell me what would you say? And she says, well, to gain confidence, people need to make small changes. Not always go for the biggest thing, but make small changes and see themselves making those changes. And then integrate that into their identity. Integration, if you heard me talk about it, it's a big topic in high performance. It's one reason successful people often don't feel like successful people, or successful people don't feel confident because they've never integrated the wins, the W-I-N-S, wins. They've had a lot of wins in their life, but they never stopped and said, wow, I really appreciate that I got a little better today. I really appreciate that. Putting myself out there. I'm proud of myself for trying here. You know what? I am a little stronger because I did that thing. To acknowledge that you've gained some strength is everything to confidence, isn't it? Write it down. To acknowledge that you gained some strength. Look, if you had 2 kids and you survived, you've gained some strength. You get a little more confidence in life. I mean, come on. What else do you have to be through? If you've already made some money in your business, but it's always more, and you never stop to go, wow, I really came from nothing. I made some money here. And you never integrated the win in your identity stays the same level over here, even though you've actually accomplished a lot over here. And I see that all the time. It's why I see people who are the same level of confidence in their 20s and 30s, and now they're 50 and 60 leading other people, but they're completely racked with insecurity every night. They feel like crap. They don't know what they're doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you should have so much more confidence. You should feel good about yourself. Integrate some of these wins. So what small changes could you make in, let's say, the next 30 days that you could celebrate? Simple, small ones. Like if you just did little things, like maybe, you do 5 extra reps at the gym, or you stay for 10 extra minutes. Or at work, you decide you're going to share 1 new idea a week. You don't have to change the world. You don't have to innovate the world. You don't have to take us to Mars. You just say, okay, at work, I'm going to share 1 more idea every week at work, and I'm going to celebrate that every time I do it each week. By the end of the week, or by the end of the month, I've shared 4 brand new ideas. Those are small. That's small. You can do that. It's small. It's one thing. Little things. So think about your health. What small wins could you have in your health? Maybe next time you go to the grocery store, you just don't get the bag of chips. And that's a small win for the day because that prevents you from eating the whole bag of chips tonight or tomorrow. Nothing against chips, so don't attack me But I think it's really important that you identify in your health, as a parent, in your career, what are some small changes you can make? It doesn't have to be a big global brand change. It might be 1 more little thing that you do. And then that 1 more little thing that's important for you to log it, recognize it, and integrate it so that you're getting stronger. If you don't acknowledge it, you can't get stronger.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.